Hello, this is a better understanding about FERPA. What does FERPA stand for? Family Education Rights and Privacy Act. It is the job of the school district to maintain the confidentiality of all personally identifiable information and education records related to students. So we need to make sure that we keep our students and their families' information confidential. Who has access to student information? If the requesting agency has a valid court order or a subpoena in compliance with FERPA or immigration laws or regulations. Parents also have access to their students' information if they claim the student as a dependent on their taxes. The student does if the student is over 18 and going into secondary school. Law enforcement unit officials in the school, also known as school resource officers, do also have access under certain circumstances. And then, if the event of an epidemic, disease outbreak, or a campus shooting, legally the school can share some records with designated personnel and law enforcement. So, with third parties, if the school hires out for a third party, they need to make sure that the third party does follow the FERPA laws because if the vendor doesn't, then the school will be held liable. And then also some free apps uh, may take some information without you knowing it. So that's another thing we need to look out for. So free apps on the iPads or computers that the students use. Now, with security cameras, more than 80% of the public schools and more than 94% of the high schools in the United States used security cameras for the school year of 2015 to 2016. And courts generally uphold the video surveillance in the hallways, classrooms, school buses, parking lots. They just don't like it when you actually zoom in on particular students. So, with records, you can't just throw student records away. Uh, the reason being is because if somebody were to see these records, they would then not be confidential, and that would break the FERPA law. Um, and so we need to make sure that we dispose of these properly. Just think of it: if it shouldn't be read, it should be shred. Parents have the rights to a copy of their students and the school district surveys and third-party access to personal student information. They may also have the right to ask for a copy of the survey questions that are given to your child. So the school may not give this out, but it will tell the school that you're serious and if you expect your child's rights have been violated. And then if you don't want your student to take surveys, have them tell you about them, and then you can contact the school about your concerns. The PTAC is the Privacy Technical Assistance Center, reported the U.S. Department of Education established the Privacy Technical Assistance Center as a one-stop resource for education stakeholders to learn about data privacy, confidentiality, and security processes related to the student level longitude data system and other uses for student data. So this is a great resource if you or a parent has questions or concerns about the data privacy and confidentiality. So steps to protect your school, raise awareness about FERPA by having meetings and explaining how serious this is and answer any questions. Just knowledge is power, and we need to make sure that teachers know what this is and how what is expected of them for confidentiality. Make sure you confirm that FERPA applies to you. It does include all public schools and charter schools. Know the rights, protections, and exceptions of your students' information. Again, we need to know what the rights and what is expected, um, so that we can make sure we are doing this correctly. Choose compliant vendors because, as I said before, if the vendor is not compliant, it will come back on the school themselves. Train all school employees. Make sure all questions are answered. And this is a constant training because if it's not used, we tend to forget about it. So we need to make sure that our teachers do understand what is going on, what needs to be done. Implement compliant policies and procedures. So we need to make sure that with all of our procedures we're compliant, and we need to make sure our emails and files are encrypted, and then implement other provision tools. So just double checking, make sure information is secured. Violations. When filing for a FERPA violation, the investigations can take months or even years, and sometimes the underlying cause is already reserved by the time the violation has concluded. So, um, but we don't want to have to deal with this, so we will take care of business as we need to. And then my school view on FERPA, uh, it shows the act. This act gives the parents or guardians the right to inspect and review his or her child's educational records, make copies of these records, receive a list of all individuals having access to those records, ask for an explanation of any items in the records, ask for an amendment to any record on the grounds that is inaccurate, misleading, or violates the child's rights, and a hearing on the issue if the school refuses to make the amendment. So parents can get detailed information about their student records and ask questions, which they should have every right to, um, about their student records. And then if they feel it is not uh, in their best interest or their students' best interest, they can have a hearing, or they can ask for an amendment. And if we refuse, then the parent has a right to a hearing for the amendment. And here are my references. And references continued. All right. Thank you very much for your time on the FERPA.